Shalom, shalom, Israel, brother. You can hop in this if you want to. Shalom, shalom, Kings, brothers, Abayala. Coming back at you with another cold cut. I'd like to give our praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai. All right, here's a topic going into humility, man. Being humble in these last days, not seeking out pridefulness, not seeking all manner of preeminence, but just trying to be humble, man, because the Lord says seek humility. Let me get a precept. Let me go to Zephaniah. All right. It's the book of Zephaniah, chapter 2 and verse 3. Seek ye the Lord, all ye meek of the earth, which have wrought his judgment. Seek righteousness, seek meekness. It may be you shall be hid in the day of the Lord's anger. So the Lord said to be saved from his wrath and his destruction, you have to seek out righteousness, which is keeping the law, statutes, commandments, but you also got to seek out meekness, man. Humility. The Lord didn't come on the earth to do his own will. He came to do the Father's will. He didn't think about himself. He thought about his people, man. Right. The Lord said to seek out meekness on the earth. Let me go to the book of Matthew, chapter 5. Let's show you that. All right? It's the book of Matthew, chapter 5. And I'm going to start at verse 5. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. So the Lord said, if you meek, if you humble, you are going to inherit the earth, man. And I'm trying to inherit the earth. Brothers trying to inherit the earth. But in this lifetime, we have to be meek. We got to be humble, man. Brothers got it.
Yeah, like he's saying, hey, the Lord said in Matthew the 5th chapter, I was going to bring that up, it's the spirit. Nevertheless, we got to be humble. And there's no greater example than humility than Yahweh Shai. I'm going to get this in Matthew chapter 11 and verse number 28. It says, come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart. So the Lord said himself that he's meek and lowly in heart.
That's right.
So if the Lord is meek and lowly in heart, and we have to try our best to follow after the attributes of Yahweh Shai, how much more should we be meek and lowly? On top of that, he was the King of Kings. He is the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Yet he still said he's meek and lowly in heart. Let's go to the book of 2 Corinthians, chapter 10 and verse number 1. 2 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse number 1. It says, now I myself beseech you by the meekness and gentleness of Hamashiach. So Paul said he's seeking men by the meekness and by the gentleness of Hamashiach Yahushua. So Paul was even moving in that spirit. Right? I got one more precept. John chapter 13 and verse number 2. So you see our forefathers all throughout the precepts being meek, at least the elect. You see the elect men of the Lord being meek, humble, sincere, pure, lowly, and that's how we should be moving in the spirit. And again, there's no greater example than Yahweh Shai.
That's right.
So where Paul even said how I'm moving in the spirit, I'm going to order it after Yahweh Shai, and he started off with being meek and lowly. So it's the book of John, chapter 13, and verse number 2. It says, and supper being ended, the devil having now put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him. Yahweh Shai, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, that he was come from God and went to God. So the Most High gave all things into the hands of Yahweh Shai. I'm going to jump down to verse number 5. It says, verse 4. It says, he raiseth from supper and laid aside his mourning garments and took a towel and girded himself. After that, he poured the water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet. So the Lord himself that created the disciples, the trees, the air, the clouds, he took it upon himself. He created the disciples.
Right.
And he took it upon himself to bow down and to wash the disciples' feet. And that's a very, very, very humble act. I mean, and I don't know, me personally, I don't know a brother that just walks up to another brother, takes his shoes and socks off, and say, hey, I'm going to wash your feet. Nevertheless, Yahweh Shai HaMashiach, he did that for the disciples himself. And that shows the spirit that our King was actually moving in, and that the spirit that our King has right now. But you got it.
Yeah, the precept, right? Right, this is the book of Galatians, right? Because that's ultimately, like the brother brought out in Matthew chapter 5 and verse 5, right? The meek gonna inherit the earth, right? The elect, they all have that trait of being meek, Right? You don't want to be the brother that is just prideful and cocky and just think you know every damn thing. Right? Because that's also going into the fruits of the spirit is being meek. Right? We're going to just get to the point. Right? It's Galatians 5:22. But the fruit of the spirit is love, joy, peace, long suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith. Verse 23, meekness. Right? You want to stay meek. Right? That's actually a mighty spirit to be in. Right? Because we see, like his brother was saying, we see a lot of our forefathers in that spirit. Right? You don't want to. I mean, we seen the pride ones get thrown down time after time again. Saul, right? Korah, right? Hey, all of them men that got thrown down, right? The other nations are prideful. They get thrown down, right? That's why he said this in Proverbs 16. This Proverbs 16 in verse 19. It says, better it is to be of an humble spirit with the lowly than to divide the spoil with the proud. Right? It's better to be of a humble spirit than to be constantly prideful. Because what happens with the men that's prideful? They get cast down into the fire, man. They get thrown down and they can't get back up. Right, we're going to go to the book of Numbers, chapter 12, verse number 3. Right? Now the man Moses was very meek above all the men which were upon the face of the earth. Right? Moses was one of the most meek men. He was the most meek man upon the face of the earth in that time. Right? While men was rising up against him, even though he had the Lord on his side dealing with him, right? He still remained meek. Right? Some men, they get a little bit of knowledge and they puff up and then they just want to, hey, come up against everybody. Right? Let's see what happened to the prideful men that rose up against Moses. Right? This is Numbers 16 in verse number 3. Right? It says, and they gathered themselves together against Moses and against Aaron and said unto them, take too much upon ye, seeing all the congregation are holy, every one of them, and the Lord is among them. Wherefore then lift ye up yourselves above the congregation of the Lord. So they saying, why are you lifting up yourself amongst the congregation? Why are you leading the congregation of Israel, Israelites in the wilderness? All right, let's get to the point. What happened to these men? Right, verse 11, it says, for which cause both thou and all thy company are gathered together against the Lord, and what is Aaron that ye murmur against him? And Moses, Slakia, where's the point at? Man, Slakia. It's in here. I can't. Y'all can go to it. Oh, I got it. Verse 32, and it says, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed them up, and their houses, and all the men that appertained unto Korah, and all their goods. They and all that appertained to them went down alive into the pit, and the earth closed upon them, and they perished from among the congregation. Right, so they perished for being prideful, for lifting up themselves and trying to exalt themselves and trying to press Moses. Right, so that's why you want to constantly be of a lowly, humble spirit. Right, don't exalt yourself.
That's right. I got a precept. This Proverbs chapter 16 and verse 18. Pride goeth before destruction. So the Lord said, before you get destroyed, before you end up falling, pride enters in. Pride goes before destruction. You think you can do what you want to do? Your mind starts to going straight from the Most High. You start to get fleshly and carnal minded. You start to come up with carnal inventions and ideas to fix your private problems, and then the Lord destroys you. Right? And it says, pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. Better it is to be of a humble spirit with the lowly. So it's better to be humble with the lowly. It's better to be around some Jakes or some Eves that don't got nothing, but they humble. They real about it. Than to be what? Than to divide the spoil with the proud. Right? It's better to be a humble spirit with the lowly, with your people, than to be dividing the damn riches with the prideful man. You at the big 12-seat table dividing the spoil with prideful men, and you're gonna die. And the Lord says, rather he would rather you have you be poor and humble with your brothers that don't got 2 cents to shake together, man. Right. The Lord rather you had that, man. The Lord gonna destroy a lot of prideful people in these last days. You already brought up Proverbs, Sirach 10.
10 and 9.
Yeah, it's Sirach chapter 10 and verse 12. The beginning of pride is the beginning of sin. It's like the beginning of pride is one departed from the Most High, and his heart is turned away from his maker. For pride is the beginning of sin, and he that hath this shall pour out abomination. And therefore the Lord brought upon them strange calamities and overthrew them utterly. I mean, at the end of the day, if you have pride, the Lord will overthrow you utterly, man. We've seen accounts of this happening in the Bible. Men, great men, that's regarded as great men, get overthrown, man, by Yahweh Shem Yahshua. We go to the book of 2nd Maccabees chapter 9, man. Let's get an example of that. Got in there.
Yeah.
It's 2nd Maccabees chapter 9 and verse. I'll start at verse 11. The Most High, when you read about the 2nd Maccabees, the 9th chapter, Nicanor was very humbled by the Most High. You got to get into this chapter. It's 2nd Maccabees 9 and 9. I start verse 10. And the man that thought a little afore he could reach to the stars of heaven, no man could endure to carry for his intolerable stink, because the Most High made things come out of his stomach for talking crazy. Verse 11, here therefore being plagued, he began to leave off his great pride and to come to the knowledge of himself, but a scourge of Yahweh. His pain increased every moment. And when he himself could not abide his own smell, he said these words, it is meet to be subject unto Yahweh, and that a man that is mortal should not proudly think of himself as if he was Yahweh. So this man that had great pride, the Most High chastised him sore to death, and he came to acknowledgement of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. Got it?
Yeah, like the brother was saying, the Most High will humble you. But before the Most High even humbles you, we had accounts to actually see how we be humbled. Now let's start off with Sirach. It's Sirach chapter 1 and verse number 30. It says, exalt not thyself, lest thou fall. So off bat, the Lord said, don't even exalt yourself. Don't even think yourself to be somebody when you're nothing. Right? It says, and bring dishonor upon thy soul. And so God discovered thy secrets and cast thee down in the midst of the congregation, because thou camest not in truth to the fear of the Lord, but thy heart is full of deceit. So the Most High, he will literally cast you down if you're proudful and then expose you before the whole congregation. Let's go to the book of Matthew. It's Matthew chapter 23 and verse number 10. It says, neither be ye called masters, for one is your master, even Hamashiach. But he that is greatest among you shall be your servant. So the Lord said the man that's even greatest among you, he's going to be the servant. Because again, the Most High, he exalts the man that's humble and that's moving in a spirit of meekness.
Right.
So if you're exalted, if you exalt yourself, the Most High is going to cast you down. But if you're already moving that spirit of humility, the Most High is going to exalt you. Again, verse 11, in Matthew the 23rd chapter, but he that is greatest among you shall be your servant, and whosoever shall exalt himself shall be abased, and he that shall humble himself shall be exalted. So if you humble yourself, you're gonna be exalted. That's plain. That's milk. So no man should even have the thought to even magnify themselves above measure. When the Lord said, let me get this in Sirach the 10th chapter. Sirach chapter 10 and verse number 9. It says, why is earth and ashes proud? So the Lord said, we're earth and ashes. Man, you just dust. You're nothing. Right? Why is earth and ashes proud? The Lord literally created man from the dust of the ground. He didn't create us out of a work just appeared us and we was just that. No, the Lord, he took us from the ground, he molded us, and that's how we became man. And the earth is the least. He didn't create us from the sky. No, he went all the way down to the dust, to the ground, and created man. Let me read that again. Sirach 10 and 9. Why is earth and ashes proud? Right now, when you go into the precepts, you read Genesis, the 18th chapter. Even Abraham, who's called the friend of the Lord, he said he was nothing but earth and ashes. Now that's a friend of the Lord. No man now in 2023 can say that they're the friend of the Most High. That would be prideful. But Abraham himself, the Most High, called him his friend. Yet he still said this. It's the book of Genesis, chapter 18 and 27. And Abraham answered and said, behold, I have taken upon me to speak unto the Lord, which am but dust and ashes. So Abraham said he's just dust and ashes. And when you read Isaiah 41 and 8, again, he was called the friend of the Lord. James chapter 2 and verse 23. Yet he still said he's nothing. He's just dust and ashes. And that means the elect.
Right.
So again, that shows examples of our forefathers having that meek, lowly, and humble spirit. All right, you got it.
1 Peter 5 and 6 from here real quick. I know this precept.
First Peter chapter 5 and verse 6. Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, that ye may exalt, it's like that he may exalt you in due time.
Right, so hey, you want to humble yourself before the Most High, man. Right, because He could bring you down or He could bring you up. Right, you got men that try to exalt themselves in the truth. Right, they try to be the most known man. Right, they trying to they just want to be on camera.
Right,
they just want to get a bunch of likes on Instagram. Right, He said, humble yourself so He can exalt you. Right, I got this up in Luke chapter 14 and verse number 8. It says, when thou art bidden of any man to a wedding, sit not down in the highest room, lest a more honorable man than thou be bidden of him. Right, because you got men, they wanted, right, in that time, they wanted to pick the cheapest rooms, right? They wanted to be sitting amongst the cool kids table. Right? It says, I'm gonna drop down to verse number 10. It says, but when thou art bidden, go and sit down in the lowest room, that when he that bade thee cometh, he may say unto thee, friend, go up higher. Then shalt thou have worship in the presence of them that sit at meat with thee. Right? He said, take the lowest room. Then the Lord gonna exalt you for taking that lowest room. Right? Verse number 11, it says, for whosoever exalted himself shall be abased. Right? Meaning, hey, if you're gonna exalt yourself, right, and you're not gonna let the Lord do it, He gonna bring you down, right, to make you humble. Right? That's why a lot of people go through certain things, right? Because the Lord wants you to become a humble person. Right? And it says, and he that humbleth himself shall be exalted. Right? So it's the same thing through the precepts. Right? The elect, they remain humble, they remain at a lower state, right? And the Lord exalt them in due time. But the wicked, right, they want to remain prideful, and they're gonna get brought down. Right? I got one more precept, Salaki. Right, this is the book of Sirach, chapter 10. And I'm gonna start at verse number 14. Right? It says, the Lord hath cast down the thrones of proud princes and set up the meek in their stead. The Lord hath plucked up the roots of the proud nations and planted the lowly in their place. Right? In the nation of Israel, the elect of Israel, they're gonna be lowly, they're gonna be humble. Right? And the Lord is gonna pluck out these other nations. Right? He's gonna rise up the nation of Israel, right, and set us up in their place instead. The same thing He does with the kings in the time of past. Right, brothers?
That's right. That's right. It's Colossians chapter 3. And I'll start at verse 12. Put on therefore as the elect of the Most High, holy and beloved. So Paul, we're going to tell you certain things that we got to put on as the elect of God. If you're elect of God, you're going to have these attributes when the Lord comes back. Let's see. This is what we want to strive for. Put on therefore as the elect of God, holy and beloved, bowels of mercies. So you got to have mercies. Kindness. You must love your brother and be kind. Humbleness of mind. Meekness, long suffering. So the Lord said you gotta have humbleness of mind and meekness. Meaning you gotta be humble in your mind, man. You can't exalt yourself in the mind and act meek. You can't do that. You really gotta be humble in your mind. That's what the elect is gonna have. You think somebody's gonna walk in the wilderness, the second wilderness, talking about where Yahweh Shai at? I've been wanting to meet this guy that I've been serving. Right? That's not gonna happen. First of all, you're gonna be put to death. Second of all, you're going to be put to death, right? And third of all, you're going to be put to death, man. Right. You can't be doing that, man. You have to have humbleness in mind and meekness, man. You walking around the wilderness like you already somebody.
Big bro at.
Yeah, where Big Bro at? Big Bro Yahweh Shai. I already know him captains over thousands. You might as well set me up now, right? That's off. You have to have humbleness of mind and meekness. Why? Because, let me go to James chapter 4 and verse 6. The Lord said, it's James chapter 4 and verse 6, but He giveth more grace, wherefore He saith, Yahweh resisteth the proud, but giveth grace unto the humble. We all need grace in these last days. Nobody made it yet, man. Right. But if you want more grace, you got to be humble about it, man. Right? You can't be proud because the Most High resists the proud. Like how you kind of resist somebody, like, get off me, right? You don't want to be around them. That's how the Most High will do you if you're proud, man. He gives more grace into the humble. He looks out more for the humble and meek. Like we always say, Yahushua was set up as an example, man. The disciples were set up as an example. Our forefathers were set up as an example to show humility, right? To show integrity, right? And not to be prideful amongst men. Let me go to the book of Psalms 101. See what King David said. Right? It's the book of Psalms, chapter 101. And I'll start at verse 4. Yeah, I'll start at verse 4. And it says, a forward heart shall depart from me. I would not know a wicked person, right? Whoso privately slander his neighbor, him will I cut off. Him that hath a high look and a proud heart will not I suffer. So the Lord said, if you have a proud look, if you have a high look, like you always looking at down amongst men, you walk through the streets with your chin at a 90-degree angle, right? The Lord not dealing with that, man. Put your chin down, brother, right? Put your chest in a little bit, brother, right? The Lord not dealing with that, man, at all. You're not going to suffer in this house. The Lord going to cut you off, and guess what? He's going to set up another man in your stead. Because at the end of the day, any king that the Most High set up, a lot of men didn't expect that to happen. Right, let me go to Sirach chapter 10, 11. This Sirach chapter 10 and 21. The fear of the Lord goeth before the obtaining of authority. A lot of men want to have hundreds of thousands of servants and men and wants to rule over 10s and 20 cities. But the Lord said, before you obtain authority, you have to obtain the fear of the Lord first. Right? And it says, but roughness and pride is the losing thereof. If you want to lose any type of authority, if you want to get fired from any management type of position, have pride. Right? You think people serve you, you serve them. Right? And it says, whether he be rich, noble, or poor, their glory is the fear of the Lord. Let me jump to Sirach chapter 11 and 5. Many kings have sit down upon the ground, and one that was never thought of have worn the crown. So the Lord said, a lot of kings, he put them in the dust. But the next person be raised up, another man never thought that man would be raised up, man. So the Lord can do anything. Trust in Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua and have humility. Brothers, got anything?
This 1 Corinthians chapter 8 and verse number 2. It says, and if any man think he knoweth anything, he knoweth nothing as he ought to know. So the Lord said, if you even think that you know something, you don't know nothing. And again, we're still just dust and ashes. We can't comprehend the things that the Most High knows. We can't comprehend how the angels made the earth, how Yahweh made the earth. We're just dust and ashes. That's why the Lord said again, if any man think himself to know with anything, he knoweth nothing. And these are precepts as well to also keep you in that meek, humble spirit. Because if you keep going over the accounts of our forefathers, you see Abraham, he said he's dust and ashes and he's the elect. You see Paul saying he's nothing. You see the men that God chose to rise up all saying they're nothing and they're better than us. Then how much more should we have moving that spirit of us being just dust and ashes? Let's go to the book of Galatians chapter 6 and verse number 3. It says, for if a man think himself to be something when he is nothing, he deceiveth himself. So if we think ourselves to be anything when we are nothing, the Lord said off bat, we already deceiving ourselves. Right? That's a reprobate mind. So if we think ourselves to be high-minded, right, the mightiest prophet, the best reader, the most on fire, nobody's better than you, the Lord already said off bat, you're nothing. And again, just these few precepts that brothers is bringing out alone, these precepts should keep brothers in that humble spirit. Again, David knew that he was nothing. Let's go to 2 Samuel. It's 2 Samuel chapter 5 and verse number 5. It says, and when King David came to Bahurim, behold, thence came out a man of the house of the family of the house of Saul, whose name was Shimei, the son of Gera. He came forth and cursed still as he came. So this man Shimei, he's coming up to King David. He's cursing at him. And when you read 2 Samuel, the 13th chapter to the 16th chapter, to this point right here, David's catching all men in their head. His son damn killed his other son. One of his sons raped his sister. And all hell breaking loose. David had to flee to the wilderness because his other son trying to kill him. So David, his mind is everywhere. And again, as all this is going on, let's see the spirit of King David as this man is cursing him. I'm gonna jump down to verse 7. It says, and thus says Shimei, when he cursed, come out, thou bloody man, thou man of Belial, and the Lord hath returned upon thee the blood of the house of Saul, in whose stead thou hast reigned, and the Lord has delivered the kingdom into the hand of Absalom thy son. right? Because David fled from Absalom and his son, because the son is trying to kill him at this point. And again, he's railing on David unrighteously, right? Jumping down to verse number 9.
All right.
It says, I'm gonna read verse 8. It says, I'm gonna finish off on 8. And behold, thou art taken in thy mischief, because thou art a bloody man. Then said Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, unto the king, why should this dead dog curse the Lord my king? So now Abishai, one of David's hitmen, he came up, he said, hey king, why are you letting this dead dog curse you? Now Abishai, when you read the book of 2 Samuel, the 23rd chapter, we read all throughout we read through 2 Samuel, you see Abishai was a real man of war. Abishai didn't play about King David. So when this man came up and cursing him, that's what he said. Verse 10, it says, and the king said, what have I to do with, let me read verse 9 again. Then he said, Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, unto the king, why should this dead dog curse my lord the king? Let me, I pray thee, take off his head. And the king said, what have I to do with you, ye sons of Zeruiah? So let him curse, because the Lord hath said unto him, curse David, and it's like, curse David. Who shall then say, therefore thou hast done so? So this man, King David, his mindset was on a whole nother level, to where he put everything aside. He understood that this man was just emotional, and he said, you know what, you don't even got to put your hands on him. Don't even touch him. The Lord put on his spirit to say that, hey, we're going to leave it in the hands of the Lord. And that's the spirit of humility. Again, David is the king. David could have anything happen to this man. A carnal king would have said, yeah, go fall upon him. Yeah, go damn thrust him through. But again, we see that the Most High, he raises up the meek. And we already see the spirit of King David in his meekness and his humility. I got one more. Acts, the 5th chapter.
That's right.
The book of Acts, chapter 5, and verse number... This whole thing kind of fire. Acts chapter 5, and verse number... I'm going to start at 36. It says, for these days rose up Thaddeus, boasting himself to be somebody to whom... I'm gonna actually read verse 34. All right, verse 34 says, then stood there up one of the council, a Pharisee named Gamaliel, a doctor of the law, and it's like had reputation among all the people, and committed to put the apostles forth a little space, and said unto them, ye men of Israel, take heed to yourselves as ye attend to do before touching these men. So Gamaliel, he's telling these men that won't hurt the apostles, hey, before you go out and put your hands on them, actually take heed of what they're saying. Right, verse number 6. He's basically telling them to try the spirit.
Right.
Right, verse 6. For before these days rose up Thaddeus, boasting himself to be somebody, to whom a number of men. So you had a man of Thaddeus, right? I believe you go into the history, he was a zealot. Right, so you have a man named Thaddeus. He's boasting himself to be somebody. He's rising up the congregation like how the brother pulled in Numbers, the 16th chapter. He's gathering up men to go forth with him to battle. It says what? To whom a number of men, about 400, joined themselves, who was slain, and all, as many as obeyed him, were scattered and brought to naught. So everybody joined themselves to this men, and what happened? They all were scattered and brought to naught and destroyed, because of the spirit that this man was moving in, because he exalted himself. Reading on, verse 37. After this man rose up Judas of Galilee in the days of the taxing, and drew away much people after him. He also perished, and all, even as many obeyed him, were dispersed. Now I say unto you, refrain these men, and let them alone. For if this counsel of this work be of men, it will come to naught. But if it be of God, ye cannot overthrow it, lest happily ye be found even to fight against God. So if this thing is of the Most High, you can't overthrow it.
At all.
Nevertheless, we see Judas of Galilee, and we see Thaddeus. Both of those men got overthrown. Why? Because they were lifting themselves up in their pride, trying to lead a congregation, and it wasn't in the spirit of the Lord, or humbleness, or meekness, or sincerity. All right, you got it.
It's the book of Sirach, chapter 3, verse 17. It says, my son, go on with thy business and meekness, so shalt thou be beloved of him that is approved. Right? The Lord said, go on in your business with meekness. Right? The Lord actually take pleasure in seeing you being meek and handling all your ways. Right? It says, the greater thou art, the more humble thyself. and thou shalt find favor before the Lord, right? Because like I said, when men increase, they start to get a little puffed up, a little prideful, right? The Lord said the greater you are, the more humble you want to be, right? You don't want to be the damn prideful person that just trying to make everybody else look bad, right? That's not a good look. That's not how you should treat your people either. It says, many are in a high place and of renown, but mysteries are revealed unto the meek, right? That's why Jake and Eve in the world, right, or in these false doctrines, they don't understand the truth, right? Because they never want to be meek, right? They just want to puff up, right? Come and scoff at the words of the Lord, right? And they don't ever understand it, right? They can't get the mysteries, they can't get the prophecies, they can't get the parables, right? They don't understand nothing about the truth, right? Because they're not meek. They don't have that spirit of humbleness, right? It says, for the power of the Lord is great, and he is honored of the lowly, right? The Lord is honored to see a man or a woman in a lowly mindset, right? A humble spirit, right? And if you want to constantly increase into this truth, right? You constantly want to continue to grow, right? You want to understand the breakdowns. You want to understand, right? It starts with meekness. That's the milk, right? You got to be meek. You got to have the lowly spirit, right? The Lord ain't dealing with the prideful, man, right? And if you want your prayers to be heard as well, right? Got one more precept. You got to also be humble, right? The Lord wants you to be humble first before you doing anything else. Right, you being prideful, but you're trying to hop into down Isaiah 19 or Revelation down 20. Right, you're not gonna understand it because you're not humbling yourself down. Right, it's Sirach chapter 35 and verse number 17. The prayer of the humble pierceth the clouds, and till it come nigh, he will not be comforted, and will not depart till the Most High shall behold to judge righteously and execute judgment. Right, the Lord said the prayer of the humble pierced the clouds. Right, so he's not dealing with any prideful prayers. You got men, right? Get that account actually. Right, I might not find it, honestly. Let me see. I'm gonna find it later. Right, but you got an account, right, that Yahushua was doing, right? You had a damn Pharisee, and I believe it was a lawyer or something like that. Right, he was damn exalting himself in his prayer. Right, he was lifting himself up. Right, and the Lord didn't behold his prayer; he beholded the next man's prayer. Right, so you want to be humbling yourself before you even sending out any prayers out to the Lord, because he could just swipe it, he could damn knock it away, right, and not want to hear what you got to say, right? But you got it.
That's exactly right, man. And Job was humble. Job had to be humble, right? This Job chapter 9, and I'll start at verse 20. If I justify myself, my own mouth shall condemn me. A lot of people seek to justify themselves. A lot of people seek to talk and try to make reasonings for their actions, knowing it's off. But Job said his own mouth is going to condemn him, right? And it says, if I speak of Shalakia, if I say I am perfect, it shall also prove me perverse. Though I were perfect, yet would I not know my own soul, I would despise my life. So Job said, if I was a perfect man, I wouldn't even know I was perfect, because I would hate my own life just by how much things I have to go through. For the Most High to make you perfect, you have to go through certain things, and men will say, oh, yeah, I'm perfect. I came out like a champion. I handled this perfectly, man. But why did Job say, who was a perfect man, say if he was perfect, he would even have known, man? The Most High has to declare if you're perfect. The Most High has to declare what was your honor, your integrity, your nobility. But man tries to do that amongst themselves. Man tries to give each other degrees. They try to give each other certificates and awards. Yeah, this guy's he's a great guy right here. He's one of us. What do you mean he's one of us, man? The Most High said he's gonna exalt you, man. And Job understood that. Let me jump up to verse 28. I am afraid of all my sorrows. I know that thou wilt not hold me innocent. If I be wicked, why then labor I in vain? If I wash myself with snow water and make my hands never so clean, yet shalt thou plunge me in the ditch, and my own clothes shall abhor me. For he is not a man as I am, that I should answer him, and we should come together in judgment, man. So Job even knew that he wasn't even on the same level with the Most High. See, Nicanor, so-called white man, think he is the Most High. But Job already knew what it was, and he said, you know what, I'm not perfect. If I was perfect, I would have known. Most High, you're the Most High, man. I'm not going to come together and you in judgment. Job had that humbleness of mind, man, and that's why Job was increased greatly after his life than guess what before, man. You feel me? Let me go to the book of Genesis, chapter 4. You don't want to be like this man right here. Right? It's Genesis chapter 4. And I'll start at verse 9. I'll start at verse 8. And Cain talked with Abel his brother, and it came to pass when they were in the field that Cain rose up against his Abel his brother and slew him. And the Lord said unto Cain, where is Abel thy brother? He said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? Who are you to get slick with the Most High? Who are you to talk like that to the Lord? You kind of look over your shoulder, am I my brother's keeper? You keep it walking. Hey, on the carnal level, damn Jake would have snatched up his damn son like this and said, who the hell are you talking to, little dude? Right? Here's what he was saying, right? And guess what? The Most High would do that on a spiritual level, man. Start jacking your life up, man. Right? You can't be talking. You don't want to talk to the Most High like anything. You don't want to talk to your brother like anything. I mean, hell, how did King David treat Saul, man? Right? It's 1 Samuel chapter 24. And I'm going to start at verse... It's 1 Samuel chapter 24. And I'll start verse 4. And the men of David said unto him, behold, the day of which the Lord said unto thee, behold, I will deliver thine enemy to thine hand, that thou mayest do to him as it seemed good unto thee. Then David arose and cut off the skirt of Saul's robe privily. So Saul came to David trying to kill him, and David caught Saul. Let's see what King David did to Saul. And let's see how he felt about it. So he caught him by his skirt, by his garment. And it came to pass afterward that David's heart smote him because he had cut off Saul's skirt. David's mind started to smote him. David said, damn, this is the Lord's anointed, man. What am I doing? I could kill him. I could torture him. I can make him a public example. But I can't do this, man, because this is Saul. This is the Lord's anointed, man. Right? He said unto the men, and he said unto his men, the Lord forbid that I shall do this thing unto my master, the Lord's anointed, to stretch forth his mind against him, my hand against him, seeing he is the anointed of the Lord, man. So that's humble, man. And David had humility. Job had humility, man. Our forefathers had humility. Do not be like this so-called white man and not have humility, man. Right? But we want to seek humility. We want to seek righteousness so we can strive forth to get the kingdom of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua, especially in these last days, man. Brothers, got anything else?
I got one last person. And I found that down. I found the example, right? The parable. Right, this is Luke chapter 18 and verse number 9. And he spake this parable unto certain which trusted in themselves that they were righteous and despised others. Right, so he's speaking to men that's prideful, essentially. Right, it says 2 men went up into the temple to pray, the one a Pharisee and the other a publican. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself, God, I thank thee that I am not as other men are, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even as this publican. I fast twice in the week. I give tithes of all that I possess. And a publican, standing afar off, would not lift up so much as his eyes unto heaven, but smote upon his breast, saying, God be merciful unto me, a sinner. Right, so you don't want to be that man, like we were saying right before. Sirach 35 and verse 17. The prayer of the humble pierceth the clouds. Right, this Pharisee, he over here exalted himself to the Lord. Right, saying, hey, I fast 2 times a week. Right, you don't want to be that man. I'm making 20 videos a week. I'm better than that man. I'm better than that prospect. Right, I fast 20 times. I fast 30 times a week. Right, no food, no water. I don't need it. I got the Lord. Right, I mean, that's all. You don't want to be trying to exalt yourself against your brother. That's your brother. You should be trying to help him get better and better at what he's trying to accomplish. Right, in this truth. Right, we're supposed to use each other as a nation. Right, and help each other get closer to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. Right, we're not supposed to be tearing each other down. Right, down, calling each other all kind of lewd names. Right, hating each other. Right, calling each other, hey, just madness. Right, having an evil eye towards your brother. Right, that's what that essentially is. Right, having an evil eye. If anything, he should have, before praying for himself, he should have prayed for this man right here. Right, calling this man a sinner. Right, he should have prayed for this man. Right, that the Most High be merciful unto him. Right, and the Most High increase that man in his letter in. Right, but this publican, he said, God be merciful unto me, a sinner. Right, that was a humble prayer. Right, he feeling low in the spirit. He just said, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua, be merciful unto me. Right, forgive me for my trespasses. Right, it says, I tell you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. Right, and he was more justified, right, with his prayer than the Pharisee was. right? The Lord wasn't dealing with that Pharisee prayer, right? It says, rather than the other, for everyone that exalted himself shall be abased, and he that humbleth himself shall be exalted, right? And that's the message in these last days, to humble yourself before the Most High, before he tears you down, right? And cast down everybody that's being proud in these last days, right? But you got it, bro.
It's the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 16, and verse number 7. It says, but the Lord said unto Samuel, look not on his countenance, or on the height of his stature, because I refused him. For the Lord seeth not as man seeth. For a man looketh on the outward appearance, but Yahweh looketh on the heart. So always remember that the Most High, he doesn't look at the outward appearance. He doesn't care how comely, how tall, how much you can bench press. No, the Lord looks on your heart, your spirit, right? How sincere you are, how loving you are, how loving you are. All right, let's go to book of Psalm chapter 7 and verse number 9. It says, oh, let the wickedness of the wicked come to an end, but establish the just. It's like the just. For the righteousness God trieth the hearts and reins. And again, the Most High, he's not looking on the man that can bench press 350. He's looking on the man, again, as meek. He's looking on the man that's looking to build up his nation in a sincere, humble, meek, and lowly spirit. All right, and that's plain. You got something else? So,
and with that, Yahweh Bashim Yashabakta, it's been Zabayala.
Brother Marcos.
So the Kazawan.
Lord really took notes, man, about humility of mind. And we move in the spirit of humility this day. All praise Yahweh Bashim Yashah. Shalom.
Shalom.